All right, we're picking back up where we left off, sorry. Yeah, so in New York City, they're doing the same thing. All right, so about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, all right, the city of New York set price ceilings or price caps on a lot of apartments there. Their homelessness issue was so big because people couldn't afford rent in New York City. All right, so let's say that we're looking at making a supply and demand schedule for apartments. All right, so generally what we would see here, all right, we've got price, we're going to have our quantity supplied, and we'll have our quantity demanded. All right, so let's say with prices we're looking at $1,000, we're looking at $1,200, $1,400, $1,600, and $2,000 a month. So rent in New York City is very, very expensive. All right, so again, at a low price, a business isn't going to be willing to supply that many of their product, right? Because they're not making a big profit. All right, but as the price goes up, a business will be willing to supply more and more. All right. However, the opposite's true, right? People are going to demand these apartments at a low price, but as the price increases, fewer and fewer people are going to want to purchase that good, or will be able to afford it. All right, and so hopefully you should be able to find out that the equilibrium price for these apartments then should be $1,400. However, not everybody can afford that. And so there's a big issue with homelessness to the point where the New York City Council said, all right, we're going to set a price maximum or a price ceiling on apartments. We're going to tell landlords, all right, you can't charge over $1,000 for your apartment. That way everyone can afford one. Well, from the supply side of things, landlords wouldn't really have an incentive to build new apartments. If they're not going to make a lot of money off of it, they'd probably rather rent it as office space then. All right, on the other side of things, if apartments are dirt cheap now, the demand is going to be really high for them. People are going to be able to afford them. More people will move to New York City because the apartments are cheaper. And so since our demand is at 500 and our supply is only at 100, that means that we're going to be short about 400 apartments. We'll have a shortage of about 400 apartments. And so this would be a price ceiling, right? It's setting a maximum that you can charge for a good, right? Normally, we would go higher for this equilibrium price, all right? But we can't go above the ceiling, all right? So the price ceiling will always have a lower equilibrium price, or sorry, a lower price than the equilibrium price, all right? Because if you set it at 1.6 thousand, it wouldn't really do anything because 1.4 is as high as we're willing to go already. All right, let's look at the other side of it now. All right, so the other side would be a price floor. A price floor is a minimum that a business can charge for a good. All right, so this is kind of a weird concept. Why would the government ever want businesses to charge even more for their product? Well, the reason is because they would be trying to help out the business. And so governments do this with farmers all the time. Like, let's say we just change a couple things. Let's say that we're looking at apples instead of apartments. So we're looking at apples for 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, $1, $1.25. Well, again, our equilibrium price would be 75 cents. That's where most farmers would sell their apples for. All right, but the government really wants to make sure that farmers stay in business. The reason they're so concerned about farmers and not about restaurants or about movie theaters or things like that is because they want to make sure that the people that grow our food are in the United States. We don't want to be reliant on other countries for food because if they have issues with us, they can close off those shipments of food. And we do that with countries all around the world. Like if you look at our interaction with Russia during the Cold War, it wasn't our nukes that won the Cold War, it was the food that we stopped sending them. Their people got hungry, their people started to starve, and so they had to make political changes. All right, so right now the equilibrium price for these apples would be 75 cents. But if the government was trying to make sure that farmers would stay in business and not have to be in competition with one another, all right, they would set their prices higher. They would set a price floor and say, all right, farmers, you can't charge less than $1.25. You can't undercut one another. And this way, all farmers make more money. All right, but the issue with this is that it creates big surpluses, right? So if the prices are higher, then farmers are going to be willing to supply more, right? They'll be willing to supply 500 apples. But if the price is higher, then the demand for them is going to drop down. And so you see this with food all the time, and I don't suggest you go do this, but if you go to Walmart on a day when they're getting in new food, like I've noticed this with bananas especially, like they'll throw out food before it's even gone bad to replace it with new food. Like the worst part is bananas, right? I hate eating green bananas, but I swear sometimes I'll go there, like, and if you go there at like 9 or 10 is when they restock, right? They'll take bananas that are still kind of like yellow-green off of the shelves to replace them with brand new green bananas because they've got to put the new shipment somewhere, and so they just throw out the old bananas before they're even ripe yet because we've got this big surplus of food in our country. All right, and that's because the government pays farmers extra money to produce these things. They subsidize them to make sure they have all the money that they need. But all right, good. So we'll leave it off here for now. All right, what we're going to do today is we're really going to practice the shifting of these curves because it is kind of complicated.